We made it tougher. We came on late. It's Emil. It's Emil Guillermo. Oh, something's wrong. Have to fix my audio. Okay, I'll try
Now it's better. Yeah, now it's better. Oh boy. Well, it's been a tough 48 hours. I mean, a roller coaster if you've been following what's been going on in American politics. The race has changed all because of a 20-year-old who fortunately failed in an assassination attempt on the former president, but has really fundamentally changed everything about the campaign. From even the number one topic was, is Biden too old? And now no one's even talking about, is Biden too old? They're just saying, oh my God, is Donald Trump the Messiah? Is it providence that he was saved? Just inches from having a bullet enter his brain. It just whizzed by. And now we have these images of Trump, bloodied face, fist pumping, American flag. We have the Republicans who were maybe 40% for him, and then Democrats who are 40% against him, and that 20% in the middle, we have a lot of those persuadables now seeing that maybe Donald Trump is the guy. Totally changed things. The Republican convention starting today. We have the announcement of a vice president GOP nominee. He's accepted, and it's not Vivek Ramaswamy. It's not Doug Burgum, the governor from North Dakota. Vivek is just the guy who ran for president. It's not Governor Nikki Haley. It's not Tim Scott. He really had a very outside chance. It's not Marco Rubio. You want the Hispanic vote, the Cuban vote. He's from Florida. Now, I don't need that. It's the guy who Trump was most popular or most comfortable with and was popular with Trump's kids. Don Jr. really likes this guy, J.D. Vance. J.D. Vance was probably the most vocal of the vice presidential possibilities, who spoke out and said, hey, it's Biden's rhetoric that caused this. Biden is the cause of the assassination attempt, which is absolute malarkey. And it's the reason why a lot of people are saying, hey, J.D. Vance, clone of Trump. J.D. Vance, he's young MAGA. J.D. Vance, who has quite a history. I mean, you look at his ups and downs and how he's changed his mind. I just think J.D. Vance is he's going to be popular among certain elements of the MAGA crowd, certainly. And he's clean cut. Well, he's got that beard. You got to say, how many politicians have beard? Not many. He said, what about Lincoln, Emil? Okay, yeah, Lincoln. But that was one of the reasons why people were saying, well, it's not going to be J.D. Vance. But it is. One thing that got me is I was watching the coverage of the convention, and they mentioned J.D. Vance is the guy. And then he walked onto the convention floor. I've walked on the convention floor before, previous conventions. It's quite a feeling. You go in that arena. He's walking there, and there is his South Asian, his Indian, Hindu, American wife of 10 years, Usha Vance. Usha Chilukuri Vance, born in San Diego, Mount Carmel High School. She Mount Carmel High School is in Rancho Penasquitos, which is that part. It's a nice part of San Diego. Middle class. Lots of Filipinos there too. Rancho Penasquitos. She went to Yale as an undergrad, then Yale Law School. They met in law school with J.D. Vance, and boom. She's more moderate and liberal, he calls her. But there he was with his South Asian wife, and I know it surprised a lot of people who don't know. There's J.D. Vance. He's a Trump clone. Oh, who's he next to? Oh, he's intermarriage. He's pro-intermarriage. So he's got some kind of natural liberal tendencies, which is good. But then how did it all just kind of dissipate into, strict at the border and national abortion ban and, so forth and so on? Oh, that's just an independent mind, Emil. Well, more immediately, how does it translate into Joe Biden was the reason, and the Democratic rhetoric was the reason for the attempted assassination of the former president, Donald Trump, on Saturday? That is the kind of vice president you want. The kind of guy who will do whatever you want, unlike Mike Pence, which is why Mike Pence is there. So it's kind of interesting. You've got people say, oh, he's married to an Indian woman. Well, Indians, they're like second to Chinese. It's now Chinese, Indian, Filipino. And she's, she doesn't defer to JD. I mean, she has her own career as a litigator with a top firm, and has really, according to Vance, helped Vance, see things he never saw, because Vance is just essentially, if you've seen Hillbilly Elegy, just a good old boy, overachieving, who's done good, right? But I have to say, I have a slight, it's not really a connection, but I understand J.D. Vance's background, because by marriage, once again, I understand what it's like, Ohio, to have that hillbilly roots in your family. But funny how J.D. Vance has turned ultra conservative, and most of the people I know from that background are staunch Democrats, working class. And I suppose that's going to be the pitch. That's going to be the niche that J.D. Vance is going to serve for Donald Trump, to go out there and be the populist, to say, hey, look, I can do it, you can do it. Let's support Donald Trump. I can see it. That's his role. He's going to be the attack dog that Mike Pence wasn't. And oh, by the way, the brown woman who's with me. Oh, she's my wife. Yeah. And then, I used to say that was going to be the thing that changes us, that makes us see one another, that makes us more empathetic toward one another. And what this tells me, maybe it does, if you're able to get the real J.D. Vance. But what this tells me is J.D. Vance is just like Trump. He'll do anything for a win. He's ideological? Not exactly. Transaction. Just like Trump. He'll do anything to get ahead. And by the way, here's my South Asian American wife. So I have a liberal bone in my body. I don't see race. Got 3 kids. I have 3 mixed kids. But why does he have such a hard-ass view on immigration, considering his in-laws, immigrants from India? I mean, I'm sure they worked hard, but J.D. Vance's hard southern border policy is not empathetic. So I would say, if we had hoped, and this was my column on the ALDEF blog, on the Asian American Legal Defense and Education Fund, as of Saturday. If we had hoped that we were going to have a unifying moment, and I had hoped maybe this is, we see it. First of all, we condemn the violence. We condemn the violence of Saturday. We don't point fingers and say, oh, it was Biden's rhetoric. No, it wasn't Biden's rhetoric, J.D. Vance. How about Trump's rhetoric? Trump's rhetoric about immigrants poisoning the blood of America. How about Trump's rhetoric about bloodbath? Oh, economic bloodbath, he meant. Oh, it's a bloodbath. Point is, we had a chance at unity. And by unity, I mean, I don't mean that we all have to forget about debate. I mean, we could still have a debate and disagree, but in the end, we do come together. In the end, we accept that someone has won the debate, or that we have compromised enough so that we can accept each other's viewpoints, because we're talking about our country. And who hasn't done that? Who didn't accept the election of 2020? Who didn't accept, who doesn't accept the fact with overwhelming evidence, that he's guilty? I'm talking about the classified documents case, which was thrown out today, which I've got some questions about that. But so here we are. We had a shot at unity, and with the vice presidential pick, Donald Trump pretty much said, we don't need unity. I'm alive. That's united enough. And it's sad because he's getting the sympathy vote. He's become a kind of overnight martyr. And according to the latest New York Times poll, Marist poll, if you read 538 New York Times, Joe Biden is further ahead than he's ever been. And even if you put Kamala Harris up on top, doesn't matter. She's closer, but other Democrats apparently do better, if I read that correctly. So it's not good news for the Democrats. The main fight that, Biden's too old, Biden's too, not fit enough to run, that's died down for now. It might come back up, but now everyone is united. Just as everyone unites around Donald Trump, Democrats are now, I don't know if they're uniting, if that's the word, uniting for Joe Biden, but you're not seeing much of a debate about Biden too old. Now you're seeing how Democrats can salvage anything given the tremendous good fortune. Providence, is it? Good fortune that Donald Trump has seen in the last 48 hours. Go back to 72 hours. He appears on top of Biden in the age debate. He survives. He lives, and this, survives an assassination attempt. His stock went way up. And then this morning, before the Republican National Convention, District Judge Eileen Cannon in Florida threw out the documents case. Just threw it out. Said Jack Smith, special prosecutor, isn't suitably appointed by Congress. That he's acting as a private citizen. It's unconstitutional, his role as a special prosecutor. What the heck is this guy doing? And she just threw out the case. They're going to have to appeal Jack Smith and company, but for sure, that case, well, it was never going to happen for the election. But it may never come up because if Trump wins, that case is forever gone. And it raises the idea, well, there was so much evidence. That was supposedly the strongest case against Trump. You saw the documents. You saw the secret documents in the bathroom, at Mar-a-Lago. You saw people like carrying things out to hide. You got Walt Nauta, right? It's a good day for Walt Nauta, the Guamanian American, Trump's body guy. We kind of knew that maybe he wouldn't be in any kind of trouble if Trump would win, or with Aileen Cannon as the judge. But what a gift for Donald Trump this morning before the convention. So that case gone. And then you have the J.D. Vance pick, which seems to be very popular among the GOP. I was going to wait to see what J.D. Vance would say, if he'd say anything. But they're just announcing his pick. I guess he will talk later. I'm not sure. But all J.D. Vance had to do was go out there and primp. Go out there and take selfies and show off his South Asian wife. Look, I have a liberal side. I've got 3 kids. I believe in interracial marriage. It is the kind of it's almost like a left-handed how do I put this? It's kind of like, this is about as diverse as the Republican Party gets. We have our white leaders, and look, they're married to nice brown people. Intermarriage. That's as far as we go. But that's the conjugal bed, the marriage bed. It reminds me of what George Orwell, who was a colonial cop in Burma, had to say about Burmese people going into private clubs in that country at the time, the private clubs being English. You couldn't go through a man could not go through the front door, no matter how educated, but a woman, if she were a mistress or if she were married to one of the white colonial leaders, she could be part of the club. That's what that reminded me of. So J.D. Vance is the guy. We'll talk more about his record. His record is really kind of stunning. How he once called, you'll like this. He once called Trump, he once wrote to his friend about Trump. Well, first of all, he called Trump cultural heroin, and it was really anti-Trump. Let's see, where is that? He called J.D. Vance was writing to a friend, and he called Trump American Hitler. I mean, these are all like and quickly he sort of changed all that around. Now he's the golden boy, the next generation MAGA, and I think if you read my piece on the ALDEF blog, aaldef.org/blog, and you saw I had hope for unity. When I saw left-wing liberal commentators, when I saw them, well, not all of them are left-wing, but when I saw more liberal than not commentators praying for Donald Trump to live on Saturday night, I mean, that's natural. That's human. That's about as human as it gets, because in these divisive times, humanity was in short supply. Humanity and common sense, you didn't see that often. But here, what else could people say? I was praying that Donald Trump not die, because it would be worse if he died. But that he lived, oh my God. You would hope that maybe he'd see the light too, and that maybe we could have a sense of a coming together. Yeah, I get it. Democracy is always about conflict. You debate, but after debate, you compromise, you agree, and that's the unity. That's the unity I was thinking. Now, it appears there's no sense of unity. No sense of unity. We'll have to see if Donald Trump, who says he's going to rewrite his speech, is going to say something different. All right, so I thought I'd call in my good friend, observer of all these things, political, Asian American Studies professor, Filipino American Studies professor, College of Ethnic Studies, San Francisco State University, Professor Daniel Phil Gonzalez, Professor Emeritus. Talking to him all weekend about this. I bring him on. Hi, Dan.
Hello.
So I'm kind of stunned by the J.D. Vance pick.
I was not, but I can understand why.
Yeah.
I was listening to you earlier, and I agree with all of the points that you raised. He's going to have to defend all of the stuff that he said about Trump, but I don't think Trump was unaware of those challenges coming. If in fact he picked Vance, I think it was more important. Why do you think he picked Vance?
I think maybe it's an admission that he's old also, and he wants a young Trump to carry on, and it was a passing of the torch within, Trump's, vision of a passing of the torch.
That's giving Mr. Trump a whole lot of credit for being able to set his own ego aside.
Oh,
and
yeah.
then, and then care about the country, and care. He would care about his legacy, perhaps, but would he care about Vance or the country or the Republican Party or anybody?
Well, you got a point. Maybe it was just inadvertent because Don Jr. came up and said, "Hey, this guy's pretty good," and with the hillbilly guy, you got
he's got a lot of fame, which is something
Kentucky.
that again, that's against Trump's ego, though. Trump never wrote a damn. He pretends to have written a book, okay, but he it was his ghostwriter that did all the damn work, right?
Yeah. Right. Tony Schwartz. Yeah.
To what extent did Vance have a ghostwriter, and how much of what that ghostwriter knows is going to come out?
I think Vance, because he entered the author game after law school, and I read this. his this is the Asian part of the JD Vance story. His mentor at Yale's law school was Amy Chua, the Tiger Mom woman.
Okay.
So I'm sure he wrote it, but I'm not sure. I think he was working out his conservative values as he was writing it because, under the mentorship of Chua, right?
Sure.
And then he marries his wife, South Asian. She's more liberal. He describes her as more liberal. This young Californian Indian American, Indo-American from San Diego, Rancho Penasquitos, very big Asian
Yeah, but
Filipino.
how much more liberal can she be? San Diego, right? Naval
Well,
base, you know.
yeah, well, that's true. But her parents were Indian immigrants. I just think that uh, that's enough. That's enough liberal cred for JD Vance. I'm married to a minority. I'm married to one. But that's also colonial subjugation too, right? Hey,
Sure.
just like I was saying about George Orwell, the colonial cop, a favorite writer of mine. But he was in his book Burmese Days describing how Asian men of high accomplishments and IQ could not go into the doors of the private clubs
Yeah.
in Burma. They would not.
But they're women. Their women could.
The women could.
Well,
Concubines, mistresses.
Well,
Yeah, that's the way it is. Well, so there she was.
major
Usha,
element of Orientalism. Major
yeah,
element of Orientalism
yeah. Well,
is what I call Asian female privilege.
right.
I
Well,
call,
there's
call it
Usha.
geisha privilege. Geisha privilege.
Yeah, geisha. And then, but it was almost like, hey, here's my Asian fetish. He was walking with his wife Usha, who's a litigator.
Yeah,
Smart,
yeah, she's a
smart.
lawyer.
Went to Yale Law.
Yeah.
Worked with some big firms, and the commentators saying, I didn't know who this woman was. Who is this woman? And they're Googling on the fly and saying, oh, her name is Usha. She went to Yale Law. Oh, these are underachievers. Ha 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 ha.
Right.
And so
No,
I don't
I
know.
think the reason Trump picked Vance is because one of the classic or traditional ways that presidents choose their running mates is if they take advice at all, from people around them, is you pick up somebody from a state that you need, right? A state or a region that you need. That's how we got Lyndon Baines Johnson.
Yeah, Texas.
And also he was strong in the Senate. Now,
18 months strong. I
yeah,
mean, he was
no,
not
he's not
very
strong.
strong.
I was just going to say that he's a contradiction to the second
Yeah,
element.
yeah.
Okay, but he is good for the first element. He needs that regional take, and Ohio borders with Virginia and
Kentucky. Yeah.
Indiana, like that. So he likes that.
The
Also,
Midwest.
also
Populism.
Also, he's younger. He's younger, and he has appeal to the urban white sector
Yeah,
that feels underrepresented at this time. So there's an
yeah,
element that the Democrats have been identified with over the past 30 years, which is the urban liberal educated, right? The urban and suburban educated. But the reality is, there's always swing populations like white educated women voters, suburban women voters, okay, who voted against Hillary in
yeah,
large numbers. I mean, there was substantial reason that Hillary lost.
yeah.
So that's where his appeal comes in.
Hey, and don't forget, he will do. JD Vance will do what Mike Pence wouldn't do.
Sure, break the law.
Break the law. JD Vance is so back and forth. If you read Hillbilly Elegy, you read about his background, his mama and papa, who were all working class Democrats, right?
Right.
How he switches over and how he, doesn't like Trump, calls Trump American Hitler. I mean, he was very,
He called him some pretty good stuff.
he was
He
a
called
never
him some pretty
Trumper,
good stuff.
for the longest time.
And very, not only vociferous but vehement. I mean, you're right on the edge of rabid. And I
Yeah,
think Trump finds that attractive as well. Even though Vance had done that to Trump, Trump sees that as strength. That's the kind
yeah,
of stuff that Trump likes.
yeah. Well, Vance Also, Marine Corps, went to Ohio State or Ohio State before he went to Yale Law School.
Hmm.
So he wasn't, like a blue blood there. Uh, he worked he didn't go into law directly. I mean, he was a venture capitalist, worked with Peter
That's right.
Thiel's group, PayPal guy. Uh,
He knows what's going on out here in Silicon Valley.
yeah, he lived in San Francisco. I mean, he knows uh, he knows the tech world. He's got the rural Ohio, Kentucky world. He's got the Senate. He's a lot of things that conservatives like, but like I said, he's going to have to, you know,
I don't
call
know.
Trump.
I don't. All of the stuff that you just described are not things the conservatives like.
Yeah,
Conservatives only like the fact that he's up the uppermost elite.
yeah,
Okay, but they don't like the fact that he won San Francisco. I mean, these are the people that were cheering. Even the so-called traditional conservatives were making jokes about Paul Pelosi.
yeah,
You
yeah,
know, I mean, these people hate San Francisco. I keep warning my students: when you're out of town, when you're elsewhere in the state, when you're elsewhere in the United States, gotta be careful
yeah,
because people really don't like San Francisco.
yeah. Here are some things that Politico wrote. J.D. Vance was baptized into the Catholic Church in August 2019. He converted to Catholicism.
That's interesting.
Yeah, and he
That's
credited
really
his
that's really
exposure.
interesting.
Yeah, credited his conversion to his exposure via Peter Thiel of PayPal to the writings of the French philosopher René Girard, whom Thiel studied under at Stanford. And Girard is famous for his theory of mimetic desire, that human beings imitate the desires of their peers, ultimately giving rise to rivalries and violent conflicts that are resolved by scapegoating a common enemy. Wow.
Well, that
What kind
works.
of morals does this guy have?
That works though. But that works. And I don't know when we're going to talk about Project 2025, but it's all over the place in 2025. It's all over the place in that project.
Yeah.
I've already read through
Scapegoat.
about the first 30 pages, so
Yeah.
including the prologue.
Well, I mean, this whole idea, the theory of mimetic desire, that human beings imitate the desires of their peers,
Yeah, well,
ultimately giving rise to rivalries and violent conflicts that are resolved by scapegoating a common enemy.
that's what gives them unity is the common enemy.
Yeah.
That
Right.
always happens. That
So
always
now,
happens.
so perfect
There's
Trumpian,
nothing new in that theory. There is
right?
nothing new in that theory.
But
Okay.
it makes him a perfect Trumpian, ally, or a perfect Trumpian second, right? Scapegoating a common enemy. Like, so to say that, oh, the reason why Trump was shot at was because of the
Said bullseye.
right, the rhetoric of Joe Biden. I mean,
Okay.
that was in
Well,
that
why don't we
tweet.
get our rhetoric scale out, and then assign on left and right scales, right? What
Yeah.
what are Republican rhetoric and what's Democratic rhetoric, and we'll put them out there and see
Well, yeah. I
who's
mean,
heavier with violent rhetoric.
yeah. I mean, look, if you compared what Biden said, I mean, and this came up just today because Joe Biden, I mean, people may have forgotten, was supposed to still be battling the "is Biden too old" question, and he had an interview scheduled with Lester Holt, and parts of that came out, and Lester Holt asked him about the bullseye question, and Biden said, "Look, I didn't mean bullseye like literally. I just meant to focus. Focus. Let's focus in on what Trump has said now." And of course, Lester Holt is not pro Biden or anti. He's just a journalist, but he's like putting the pressure on Biden so that Biden
Sure.
is uncomfortable and doesn't look quite like he's answered the question. And this is the untenable position that Biden's in, that that it's no longer about substance and policy. It's all about style, and it's all about, did I stumble? Did I say left instead of right? Did I say Trump instead of Biden? Did I say, Did I say
Yeah, yeah,
L.A. and
and Biden's going to be under 10 times closer scrutiny than Trump. Everybody's used to Trump and his exaggerations. They're
right?
they're accustomed to his quote style, okay,
Yeah, yeah,
and they will grow accustomed to Vance's supportive style,
yeah,
okay.
yeah,
So once again I think Trump liked Vance's pit bull attitude, and that's another reason that he chose him. So we'll
yeah.
see how it works out. Right now people are wondering, is Trump going to be able to do the unity thing? Is he going to be able to calm down the rhetoric? And I
Well,
don't think he has that vocabulary. He doesn't have the
yeah, he doesn't
vocabulary
know.
to do that.
He doesn't know. And well, I just think that he tipped his hand by appointing Vance, or by naming Vance as his running mate, because if he really wanted unity, he would have had the wisdom to pick a woman. But what woman could he pick? I mean, there are no women out there except, and this would have really showed he
New
was
York
ready for unity,
was
and
Haley.
that's Nikki Haley.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think he would have gone for New York, or
Oh,
even
oh,
Mace. Or how
he
about
might.
Mace?
Oh, no, no, no. He would have gone for Stefanik.
Yeah,
Stefanik from New York.
that's what I think. I think.
Yeah.
I think.
Or I don't think Mace, because Mace hates Marjorie Taylor Greene and vice versa, and Trump likes Marjorie Taylor. He could have named Marjorie Taylor Greene. That would have really, but Stefanik is alienating too, and
Oh,
but
put
these.
that on my wish list, man. I want to get. You know what? I'm going to buy some Marjorie Taylor Greene ornaments, Christmas tree ornaments,
Yeah.
and
Well,
I'm
I'm
going to
I'm
send
just
them
telling
out.
you.
I'm
um,
going to send them out to all of my friends who said, I really can't. I really can't. Both of these candidates are horrible. I really can't. I'm just not going to vote.
Hey,
You know.
hey, if Trump, see, I did a Biden there. If Trump were smart, he would have nominated or put the name of a vice presidential pick as a woman. I think he should have gone with Haley, and then people would have seen that, oh, he's going for the middle, he's going for the compromise. He is for a kind of unity. Now there's no unity in the Vance pick.
Well,
Here, yeah. Here's what a friend said about Vance. He
okay.
is thoroughgoingly illiberal in his instincts. A friend of Vance from Yale has said, I don't mean it as a slur, I mean in a technical sense. He is skeptical of the political project of Enlightenment liberalism. Like, we're all just autonomous individuals trying to self actualize and maximize our own interests. That's what he
What?
said.
Okay. Wait. Is that what he thinks Vance is about, or
Yeah.
that he prefers that? Okay.
Yeah. He
Well,
says
I mean,
he is
that's just
skeptical.
that. All that does is underscore the old saw of individualism, right?
Yeah.
I mean, when de Tocqueville took his first tour of the United States, one of the things that he talked about repeatedly was the American notion of individualism, and how that's supposed to be reflected in our enjoyment of individual rights, right? And all that. And but what he said, well, if you read the rest of what he said that's dangerous stuff, man, because it's hard to maintain, right, a sense of collective identity when you got all these people thinking about individualism. And so that's what's going on. And they say that all the time. So you see all of these people congregating around the Second Amendment because they want the individual right to keep guns. Okay. But they let the NRA do the talking for them, because the NRA is funded really well by gun
Yeah.
manufacturers,
Yeah.
and just like the lobbyists are funded extremely well by
Yeah.
gun manufacturers. But they blame all of that on corporate elites, and at the same time, they vote for people who keep the corporate elites literally at their desks.
Well, yeah. Oh,
Alec. The what is that thing? What does Alec stand for now? The
Alec.
American Legislative and something committee. Right? And
Uh,
and all they do is write up laws, and they hand them. They pre-write legislative
oh
proposals,
yeah. Yeah,
and
because
they
they're
hand
lazy.
them to the people in the state legislatures. They literally Give
Yeah,
them.
because they don't. Because they're the legislators don't know, and if you got something made to
What do you mean
order,
they don't know? Why are they getting voted for?
well, that's why people are voting for them for the wrong reason. Hey, now here's another JD Vance thing. In November 2020, 1 week after the presidential election, Netflix released Hillbilly Elegy, directed by Ron Howard, and it had Glenn Close as Mau Mau. It had Gabriel Basso as Vance, Amy Adams as Bev Vance, and the movie was panned. The New Yorker called it a libertarian's fantasy, and Vance had such a negative reaction to the film that it was his last straw that began his estrangement from elite liberal society. So he has this view that the Hollywood elites, here's the vision of the Hollywood elites, and that's what turned JD Vance into a conservative, apparently. And
Wow,
then
but that's recent as hell. That means that
that's recent, right?
he went crazy
Yeah,
conservative after he wrote the damn book and after we saw the movie. So
right. He went crazy in 2020, and then he said, and then about Trump, he said, I regret being wrong about the guy. This is during his campaign in 2021 when he was running for Senate of Ohio. He says, I think he was a good president. I think he made a lot of good decisions for people, and I think he took a lot of flack. He is the best president of my lifetime, said JD Vance. This is in 2021. And then in April 22, Trump endorsed Vance because that was a big race, remember? I mean, it was like,
wait, wasn't he born like in 81 or something? I mean,
yeah, he's young. He's like 39 now.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
and
So,
Trump in April
so
2022,
83. Yeah,
Jade, Trump said to Vance, JD is kissing my ass. He wants my support so bad.
yeah, yeah. I remember
And
that.
and of course Trump said, oh yeah, or
That's a
Vance,
lot.
oh
That's a lot
yeah.
of territory. That is a lot of territory to cover, Mr. Vance. If you're
And
gonna
then Mitt,
don't purse your lips too tight
yeah.
because
I,
you got a lot of territory.
yeah, and then Mitt Romney told his biographer in 2022, quote, I don't know that I can disrespect someone more than JD Vance. So, there are a lot of people because JD Vance was, uh, you know, because he doesn't, he's totally transactional, you know.
Well, gee,
Well, I'm just saying, for
you
people
know,
who believe in something.
most of the Republican Party leadership, right, is
Yeah.
totally transactional. I
Well,
mean,
yeah.
even Mitch McConnell, right, the
Well,
great,
he
you know,
got booed today.
yeah,
He was
okay,
he
yeah,
was
but
talking about the
totally
vote.
transactional. Even he's who is one of the more traditionalist, principled conservatives, right?
Yeah,
Even he turned out to be ultimately transactional. He
yeah,
rode he rode the Trump horse.
yeah,
He
and
didn't like it, but he did it.
he I guess is paying the price because here he was, delivering the delegates of Kentucky. He gets booed, and you understand that all these things that Trump enjoys, a court that backs him up, a Supreme Court that backs him up, uh, all of it is because of Mitch McConnell, who would not allow the Senate to convict on the impeachments. He would not allow the Senate to convict.
Yep,
So
because he had a close majority. He had a Republican majority, but it was close, and there were enough Republicans to vote with all of the Democrats to convict. You're right.
yeah,
But
I mean,
did the American public
Trump
give a crap?
owes.
Yeah. The
Well,
American public
yeah,
doesn't care. The American public
hey,
says, okay, they lost. The Democrats tried this game, right? Came out
yeah,
of the House, put it up there in front of the Senate, and they lost.
yeah,
That's all the American public cares about.
they did, but
They don't like losers.
it's just the irony of there's Mitch McConnell, who is old. He's more like he's like Joe Biden type old or
Yeah.
worse, right? He's barely getting around. I mean, remember all the episodes he was having, but they
Yep.
propped him up, and there he is delivering the delegates for the nomination today for Donald Trump for president, and and McConnell gets booed, and everything was set up for Trump by actions of McConnell. From that vote on impeachment to the blocking of a Supreme Court
Merrick Garland
justice, Merrick Garland, to
rushing through two Republican nominees.
yeah. I
You
mean,
know,
it's all his doing, and he gets nothing. And I don't see what astonishes me
yeah,
is
but he
that
gets what he deserves, man. He
yes,
sold out.
yes,
He sold out.
right.
He danced with the friggin' devil. You know,
He gets what he deserves, but I don't know if anyone really understands that. They just say, "Oh, yeah, he's just an old guy," but
I just said, dude. You know, you and I are
yeah,
standing here. We're voices crying in the wilderness. We're trying to inform people of the reality in a lot more detail than they give a crap about.
yeah.
That's the
Well,
problem.
that's true, but I just hope that you know, I want to see people stand up for something, people believing in something. I don't like
But they
that.
haven't been educated to do that. That we have
Yeah,
failed from middle school on up. Okay, because
mm,
even if I was the guy who got the requirement for graduation changed at SF State. Okay,
mm,
and I called it political literacy, and I made
uh,
that argument in '79 and '80. Okay, that's older than Vance.
yeah,
That's how long ago. Okay, so we had those policies in place all these years, but I only teach one or two sections. All throughout the last 40 years, I only teach one or two sections of maybe 50 sections of this subject matter
yeah,
because there are other departments like political science and even women's studies, economics, and history. Those three. Women's studies fewer sections, but obviously history, political science, and economics get a lot of courses that satisfy this requirement, particularly history and poli sci.
yeah.
Okay, so it all comes down to who's teaching those classes, and the history department. I think nowadays they're a little more centrist, but back when I first proposed this stuff, they're pretty conservative. The
Oh yeah,
people
yeah,
the people that were considered liberal to me were centrist, and luckily they were willing to talk to me about a lot of stuff. We were on committees together, and so there was camaraderie that comes out of just being on the same committees and having to vote on the same similar issues, right? That were based on the committee's work. So that worked out fine for the college that I was representing, and it worked out well for the university generally, but it still doesn't mean that students are going to what do I want to say, that they're going to accept the perspectives that we offer. Okay, it doesn't mean that at all. After every semester, every period, whether or not it's a intersession or not, a short session or a long session, the reality is that I always have at least 5% that openly embrace Trump and embrace the what they say are Trump policies, right? And I don't even know what that means because there is no such thing as a Trump policy, okay? There may be Trump statements,
yeah,
okay? And there may be attempts to realize those statements, but they're not well described policy. How is build the wall a policy? Okay? But they you can say I'm going to cut taxes, but what did he do really? Who benefited from the so-called Trump tax cuts, right? And that's policy.
yeah,
That actually was policy, and they say I like that. He did tax cuts. They believe him just because he used the word cuts.
yeah,
They're not even looking at the reality of it. And then people said, I asked them, okay, well, you must be making an income less than $100,000 a year. And they don't want to really answer that because that ain't crap here in the Bay Area at the
yeah,
time. 100,000, you weren't doing that well, okay? But I said that those are the people who got returns, okay? So if you don't mind, how big a return did you get? Oh, several $100s. Wow. Wow. Okay. That probably didn't even pass, that didn't even pay for their freaking gas bill, their petrol bill for their fuel their car. Uh, but that's the kind of stuff that I was hearing. I said, well, people who were making over $300,000, they were saving, sometimes five, six, $7,000, and people making over $400,000, right? They were hardly paying taxes at all.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing. When it comes down to it, these details are, if people discover them, it might hit, it might not hit, but the reason why people vote for someone is because there's something about them they like, right?
They like Trump's career. They
Yeah.
see him as a charismatic guy. They
And
believe in The Apprentice.
right, and they believe, and it was The Apprentice, right, that got him into people's homes. But over the weekend, we haven't talked about the assassination attempt yet, but
He
Trump
showed strength.
being
He showed real strength.
huh?
He showed real strength.
Yeah, well, Trump, when he showed strength compared to Biden, I mean, if it's all about who has vigor, who has strength, he's coming. He rises up from after getting getting shot at, and then he's just thinking about marketing all the time. Where's the cameras? Pump up my fist, fight, fight, fight.
Yeah.
And of course, people are following everything, every move, and those images from the rally. And I would like to see none of those pictures be politicized, but they are. They're on social media, they're on T-shirts, they're the new mugshot. It's like, hey, here's my badge of whatever, courage, my badge of my street cred, that I'm a fighter. I just think it's ridiculous that
Well, but you just said, you'd rather that they not, but you know that they will. So
yeah,
that's simple.
yeah. So
So yeah, it's real simple.
here's the Hitler quote from Vance. In February 2016, Vance sent a message to his former law school roommate, Josh McLaurin, that McLaurin has recounted publicly. In it, Vance said he went back and forth between thinking Trump is a cynical asshole like Nixon, who wouldn't be that bad and might even prove useful, or that he's America's Hitler. And this is a screenshot McLaurin shared on social media in 2020 when Vance was running for Senate in Ohio. I never could have dreamed during those exchanges in 2016 that he would end up being one of the principal reinforcers of Trumpism. Only a few years later, said McLaurin, who is now a Democratic state senator in Georgia. And this is part of the reason why people despise. There's a real large segment of Republicans who once saw him as a somewhat honest never Trumper, now a full-blown Trumper, and it's just who do you trust, right? How do you who do you what kind of person is this JD Vance, who is manipulative and just wants to he just wants to win, I guess that's
He was okay. To say that he converted
to
over
Catholicism.
not only to Catholicism but to conservatism, and
Hmm.
that conversion to Catholicism is only 5 years back.
Oh yeah.
So what we're talking about is something that has occurred very recently, and so the question for me is how much of that was uh, a realization, an actual Alleluia moment for him, and how much of it was mere opportunism.
Well, even those America's Hitler quote was in 2016. That was 8 years ago. We remember eight. We're both old, but we remember 2016. I was doing my French festivals, and you were still teaching in class, and
I remember the golden escalator. So
yeah,
yeah,
right. I mean,
well,
but
that was 2015.
2016,
Yeah, he was already in.
yeah,
Yeah, Trump was
2016. He's
already
saying,
in.
yeah, that this is when and then in 2016, Vance is saying he might be like, useful like Nixon, or he's a cynical asshole like Nixon, useful, or he's America's Hitler. 2016, he said that. And
Yeah,
then,
well, I don't know. Right away, you're showing also a level of ignorance by that statement. He was showing a level of ignorance by that statement because, to say that Trump is useful, definitely so. Okay,
oh, no, no,
definitely
no.
so.
He said Nixon was useful.
Yeah, but he was saying that Trump could be like Nixon, okay, who could
Oh,
be
yeah.
useful. Nixon was who was he useful to? He was a traditional Republican that went awry because he wanted to win a second term. I mean,
Yeah.
but he was typical traditional Republican.
Yeah.
You know,
Well,
I actually credit Nixon for doing some good things, but
yeah,
some of those things he did as a, for one, he didn't attack affirmative action,
right.
and that was a desired that was a platform I'm sorry, that was a plank in the Republican platform, was to get rid of affirmative action, and he listened to Bob Dole. Remember Bob Dole's later campaign? People said, "Are you going to get rid of affirmative action?" Bob Dole said, it needs reform, but you don't throw the baby out with the bathwater." That shows
Yeah,
you how traditional these guys are, because they use those kinds of
yeah.
cliches, right? But you know, so
Well,
so Nixon didn't do any of that stuff. He actually went for detente, which was
yeah.
very good.
We
You
don't
know,
have to. We don't have to defend Nixon. I'm just saying
I'm not
this is.
defending him. I'm
I, I'm.
saying
I'm
this is why Vance could have been correct, but he chose the wrong reasons. That's why
yeah.
I'm saying he's really not that well informed at that point.
Well, I'm just saying he just speaks his mind,
I
oh,
go with that.
and where he is. I mean, if I were a European NATOist, pro Ukraine, I'd be very worried because he's anti-Ukraine. Um,
Yeah, but they're
and
already worried because it doesn't even take Vance. They
yeah,
know Trump just says it straight out. So
yeah, right. It doesn't take Vance, but Vance and Trump, meaning
yeah, you
you
have the
know, if
combination.
yeah, and
Yeah,
if
every time
Vance,
something happens to Trump, you're guaranteed the same position.
yeah.
Yep,
All right, so
no, I agree. So
here's what
it's
here's
gonna
what
be really
Vance said.
interesting.
Here's what Vance said after the Access Hollywood video emerged in 2016, October 2016, about Trump bragging about groping women. Uh, Vance said, "When you're a star, they let you do it." And let's see, Vance lamented on Twitter, suggesting that to justify Trump's behavior was unchristian. Fellow Christians, everyone is watching us when we apologize for this man. Lord help us, said Vance.
Well, the Lord helped him, and he converted to Catholicism.
Yeah, and also the Lord helped Donald Trump. Said, "Hey, for groping all those women, we're going to let you live."
Well,
So,
there were a lot of women that helped
yeah,
Donald Trump.
yeah.
Remember the "Grab Me Here" T-shirts?
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, so look, we're talking about Vance here, and let's move on to another subject. But first, before we leave the Vance thing, is Vance going to move the needle a little bit in terms of attracting voters, or probably not? I mean, not like if he had been a woman. If
I think
Vance
it's
is,
going to be, yeah, I agree with you. I think it's going to be 50-50. I think some people are attracted to him, but there's going to be a lot of other people that turned off. Okay,
yeah,
so like you said, the Democrats are going to keep playing. Well, this is what you did 5 years ago. This is what you did 6, 7, 8 years ago, and
yeah,
how do you square that? He's going to be able to answer that, but
yeah,
just proposing the questions and
yeah,
showing the contradiction, right, is
yeah.
enough to hurt him. That's enough.
He's a lying politician. He's not as good as Trump, but he becomes a almost carbon copy, a clone, as I think Biden said that he was a clone, and so I
You
don't.
used the word earlier. He's a transactionalist and he's an opportunist. You put
Yeah,
those two things together, and you get people who really aren't standing by any kind of principle except self gain,
yeah,
whatever it takes to improve their position. That's it.
just like Trump, just like
And
Trump. Okay, all right.
well,
So
read Machiavelli, man.
yeah,
Machiavelli, the prince. That's
yeah,
it.
yeah. Well, all right. So this is why politics is a turnoff. We want principled guys. We want lead in our leaders, but
Yeah,
we'll accept leaders who lie. We'll
we'll see.
accept.
We've also been taught, that the checks and balances system is alive and well in the Constitution. What
Mm,
what the Republican Party has done, okay, not just conservatives, but the Republican Party generally has done ever since Richard Nixon, right? So we're going back 60 years now, okay,
mm,
is that they have mined the gaps in the Constitution.
mm.
They have succeeded in mining the gaps of the Constitution. That's it. There's all kinds of holes in the Constitution, right? The
Right.
reason there are amendments and the reason that there have been judgments made interpreting the amendments, and by doing so, making the society structurally more inclusive, right, is
Mhm.
by interpreting the amendments more liberally. Okay.
Right.
And not only that, even adding amendments like the 18-year-old vote, for example, and then
Mhm.
the struggle over ERA, right, the attempt to do an equal rights amendment. Those kinds of things are what made the society more inclusive. What so that's the liberal side of gain, right?
Yeah.
Now, the problem is that all of those things are what the right now wants to reverse.
Right.
Okay? And so Trump was that horse. He was the vehicle that was going to enable that process. And it has succeeded. Okay.
And look how long it takes, though. I mean, because the Republicans are convinced, oh, like this is, they were in it for they took the long view, right?
Yes.
50 years, 100 years, they were going to fight it, and
They
they
must
didn't
have
give
read
up.
they must have read some stuff on Orientalism.
Yeah, they did not give up, right? I mean, Ed
Yeah.
Bloom and affirmative action in the Harvard case, they did not give up, and now you got to wonder, are the liberals or the left, are they going to be as persistent? You would hope. I mean, especially as we approach the 60th anniversary of the Civil Rights Act, you would hope
Yep. Yep.
that as it starts swinging back, are
That's
we
right.
going to be as persistent trying
Sure.
to?
And then next year will be immigration reform.
Yeah.
So 60th anniversary of that. And so, when you look at the ostensibly what the Republican platform has been in real terms over the past 60 years, it has changed drastically, right? Because under Ronald Reagan did something really interesting when he took a contradictory position to the populist position on immigration. Okay, in the late 70s, and there were already mass appeal for the argument that immigration reform had hurt the United States. And we got too many people speaking too many freaking other languages besides English. Remember that? Remember the English
Yeah.
only
Yeah.
reaction and all that stuff, okay? In the midst of all of that, Ronald Reagan said, we need immigration. And he's right
Yeah.
from a strictly transactional perspective, right? We
Mm.
needed immigrant, and people think, oh yeah, we need farm workers. No, remember the '60s was also about recruiting highly educated people who from countries that spoke English.
Right.
So, what became the big immigrant groups that came in with high educations, many with already professional experience in their in their important fields? What did we need? We needed scientists, we needed doctors, we needed more nurses. So, who came in? Who English speaking universities? Where are they? Hong Kong, right?
Yeah.
Uh,
Philippines
New Delhi, right? That's right. India and the
and India.
Philippines.
Yeah.
There it is. Okay, so here we are.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
And
Uh,
and I just think that now we're in this new generation, and they just want to get at the southern border, and it's not just going to
yeah, it's
target
too
the southern.
late, man. I was, 40 years ago, I said, there's going to be this reaction from a fearful white America, and it's too late. It's
We're on
too
the
friggin'
inside
late.
already. We're here
Yeah,
already.
it's
Well, that's why they want to stop. They
birthright
want to stop.
citizenship. We got to
Yeah,
stop that.
birthright.
We got to stop anchor babies. We got to do. This is all this desperate language over the past 6 or 7 years. It's
Yeah.
just really nuts.
So, I mean, but this is the future that we're going to have to be fight. All the fights that we thought we won, just like Roe, all the fights we thought we won, we're going to fight them again, and
See,
that's the
yeah,
way of the world.
that's the reality of American politics. You can win yesterday, and you got to lose today. That's the way it is. And people got to understand, if you're going to be saying, I hate politics, I don't want to get involved, you're letting the other guys win. It's real simple.
Yeah. Well, you know what? One thing that got me is I was, writing my piece on the LDEF blog about uh, our chance at unity, and I realized that the unity, it depends on how you define
Yeah, what's
unity by
unity?
unity. It doesn't mean that
We
we
agree on
all have.
everything.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't mean we all have. We're all united at the same time at the beginning of our argument. We're still arguing a different perspectives, different point of view. But at some point, we end the argument, and that's when we unify and we say, okay, we honor the process. And in this debate, the arbiters have determined I won, you won, whatever. But we come together and say, okay, we agree. This is the way it is. And then there's a period of time, new legislation comes up, we fight again. But the unity is at the end, not necessarily at the beginning of debate. There's always going to be a debate. I mean, someone said, "Oh, democracy is all about, differences. It's about, people not being unified. It's about, hard clashing, opinions." Yes, but at some point,
You
the
have to
hard,
accept. You have
yeah,
to accept an outcome,
yeah.
even if that outcome is continued conflict. In other words,
Well, yeah,
you have to accept that we might not be able to resolve these issues, but we have refined our arguments to the point where we understand clearly what the point of disagreement really is. Okay, and then you have to accept that difference. Here we
until,
go.
until you can fight again, like they did with affirmative action
That's
or,
what you're
or
supposed to
abortion.
do. That's ideally you're supposed to be in an upward moving spiral, right? Yeah, an upward moving spiral. You argue, and then you get reaction. Okay, then you develop a better argument, right? And then you get reaction. They develop a better argument, you react, and it
All right,
keeps
but
on ascending. But that's not what's been happening. Instead, yeah, we're like the doggy chasing the tail. We just keep going in this freaking, frustrating, running in a circle.
yeah, well,
All we do is we change directions.
yeah,
We'll
yeah,
run in the
well,
opposite direction.
right. We swing one way, then we swing the other way. Oh, here we are on,
That's
well,
right. The,
like
the,
on
the
affirmative
upward
action. Yeah,
spiral, yeah, is not happening.
affirmative action. Now we go back the other way, and we fight, and
Well,
so it's
and
like a.
who is responsible for that stagnation? Who is responsible for the fact that we have a static? People are all we have a common complaint, right and left, right, and that is stagnation in Washington D.C. Right? We got
Yeah,
things don't move. Who's most responsible for that lack of movement?
I know who.
You don't think it's the right? I'm going to tell you right now, it's the right. It's conservatives that are most responsible for that.
Well, I think the conservatives haven't given up, and like if you take the affirmative action fight for abortion, they don't accept it as settled law. They keep fighting, and then they find an opening, and it may take 30, 40, 50 years, but when they get that opening,
Well, why is it okay? So why would they have
they're-
been successful? I agree with you completely. Why is it that they've been successful in reopening the issues and coming back and eventually winning? Why is it they're successful?
well, the only thing I can think of is a certain complacency on the part of the left that, hey, settled law. This
Okay,
is
that's
settled law.
that's a major
That's
point.
one. That's
That's a
one.
major point.
But also it's their persistence, and then
But why did they have that
things like.
persistence? I agree with you. Why do they have that
Uh,
persistence?
I think it's just because that's all they believe in. They're consistent. They're
Belief,
consistent in the yeah,
belief,
yeah,
and their belief system is moralistic, and that is their appeal.
yeah.
They take
Well, affirmative
they take
action was
moralistic
more.
positions.
Affirmative action was a moralistic appeal to equality, to equity, and then what they've done, what the conservatives do, is they hijack the moral appeal and say, "Oh, reverse discrimination. Oh, what about us whites? Oh, what?"
Well, okay, for
They can't.
affirmative action started in the late 1960s. The earliest probably 67, 68. Okay,
Yeah,
the what you do is you look at the Civil Rights Act, and then enabling provisions of the Civil Rights Act made the EEOC possible, right?
yeah,
Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, right? And the EEOC sets up all of these federal attorneys and offices all over the country, right? To do what? To go make equality. How do they do that? Find inequality and sue the hell out of people, for running inequality, right? forcing local governments, state governments, right, to come up to the new 14th Amendment standard, right, for
Mhm.
equal protection. So that's what they did. Now, uh, are, they're gonna get rid of EEOC. They're gonna do away with all of those federal
Yeah.
projects and programs that had anything to do with equality, and they name that simply by saying we're getting rid of the DEI stuff, right? We're
Yeah.
getting rid of diversity, equity, inclusion stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. And a lot of people, including people of color, who are willing to do that because they don't see themselves as the beneficiaries of those
Right.
programs.
Right.
Those are the people who were the plaintiffs at Harvard.
Yeah, there are a lot of people who say, "Hey, yeah, let's sue. Yeah, let's sue to end it because we got to get ours," and they don't see themselves as
They're not the
overall
beneficiary. That's right.
beneficiaries. Yeah.
And they've
Well,
always drawn the color line at black, and in now more recently black and brown. They've
yeah.
always drawn that color line. Okay, then so-called moderate academics
Mhm.
started analyzing what was going on in terms of the Asianization of major universities. Right,
Yeah.
we constitute less than 6% of the total population throughout the country. Okay, and they're seeing us as 20, 30, 40% of the population at major universities, both
Right.
public and private, right? So they're saying, well, these people are getting ahead. They don't need to that stuff, okay? And it's true. Some ethnic groups do better than others, right? And also class makes a
Right.
difference. There are people who immigrated from Asian countries that came here with a lot of money. That they already had mercantile history in their families. They started businesses that within 10 years
Yeah. Yeah.
became very profitable. Right? What is Patelco? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, yeah, and
that
well,
kind of
you
stuff.
you look at some Republican Chinese, like the
Indians,
Elaine
South
Chow's
Asians.
family.
Yeah,
Elaine Chow's family. So, all
sure.
right. So this is how it happens, and so the pendulum keeps swinging, and um,
Yeah, but then
it's
you got Chinese, Filipinos, and Vietnamese who think that they're also they have been successful because of their own work,
right. I
right?
did it
So
myself.
they don't see themselves as beneficiaries of affirmative action at all. And the reality is, a lot of Asians who now hold and historically have held civil service jobs, right,
Mhm.
had access to those jobs because of affirmative action.
Right.
Yeah.
There's a denial. There's a
Well,
denial that
they don't
people.
understand that affirmative action means it guarantees equal treatment at the entry level. That's all. Instead, they have been schooled by the general media to think that affirmative action means if you got the right color, you get the job. That's
Right.
the way affirmative action has been taught. What? Tell me what color people all of the media picked on to be experts talking about affirmative action programs and projects for or against. What color were they? When they presented them on their discussion panels on the news programs.
Are you talking about the Harvard case?
No, I'm talking about
Historically, well, usually
these.
it's
How affirmative across
uh,
the board. I'm going to
uh,
tell you where I'm going with this. The
yeah.
most all of the experts virtually were black.
Oh yeah, yeah.
All of the
I
experts,
would say
whether or
both.
not they were arguing for or against, they were black. So the media is teaching people that affirmative action is a black and white issue. All right,
Right.
that's number one. Okay, now who benefited the most from affirmative action in 50, 60 years? Women, and
Yeah.
which women? White women. Okay, when was the last time you ever heard anybody talk about that? The affirmative action,
That's,
anti-affirmative action case here in California, right?
yeah.
It overwhelmingly, what is it, Prop 209?
Yeah.
Overwhelmingly passed, right? And
Right.
who voted for it? A lot of white women, educated white women, who benefited directly from affirmative action.
Yeah. Well, I've mentioned it all the time that
Yes, you
white
did,
women
but
are the
but that's
beneficiaries. But
us.
yeah.
We're sort of like the mini MSNBC. I mean, yeah.
Well, there's no you know well, no one speaks out in general or no one speaks out specifically about the Asian experience, but they see the Asian experience as, as the plaintiffs in the Harvard case,
Yep,
and they
that's
say,
right.
well, Asians must be against affirmative action.
That's right.
Well, some are, but
No,
Asians
actually, the
are
majority of Asians in polling and
support.
also in the votes,
Yeah,
after
support.
exit polls,
Yeah,
right, are almost 70% are
yeah,
in
they
favor of
support.
affirmative action. Yeah,
But you got one or two folks who are willing to be used to complain about the Asian experience, and then they'll claim meritocracy. Look, I got the grades, I didn't get in, and then they get used as the example, and they become the stereotype. When the
that's right.
real stereotype is that Asian Americans, many of them, are beneficiaries and do well, and have been not just beneficiaries, but good beneficiaries who have done the most with what they've been allowed to do. But a
They've
lot of
even
it is,
gone on to hold office,
oh
both
yeah,
appointed and elected office, and they've
sure,
done well by everyone.
yeah,
They have actually benefited everyone. They tried to be fair to everybody across political lines. You know.
yeah. What gets me is that at some point, we were talking the other day about, which minorities want to replace Biden, and at the top of the list were Asians more than
Yeah,
white, and it made me think. And this is how it's related to this affirmative action question. At some point, Asians have adopted the same positions or have exceeded whites in these positions. Uh, this is not the first time people have mentioned, well, are Asians now white? Are Asians, have they crossed over?
I
At
was
some
getting
point,
ready to. Yeah, I was getting. Yeah,
at some point, the Irish, the Italians, the Greeks, the Jews
yeah.
are no longer ethnic; they are white, and you know.
Have
So
Asians
at
been
some
that?
point,
No,
when do we professor?
what? No, they made us adjuncts. Okay, they don't
We're
include us
adjuncts.
as white, but we're white like.
We're white adjuncts. Well, so I mean,
We're adjunct. Yeah, yeah. So whenever they do their critiques or analyses of what's going on in the major universities,
mhm,
they always say white and Asian, right? So they include us,
yeah.
right, on one side
So
of the racial
when
divide.
I'm just saying that when JD Vance is showing up with his Asian wife Usha, and when you know Kamala Harris has the first gentleman, right? Her Jewish American husband. I mean, that's sort of the thing now, right? Asian woman, white male. I mean,
Well,
that's been the
that
thing.
that's been the thing. That's
That's been
been
the
the
thing.
thing.
But
Long time.
Asian man, white male, or Asian man, white male, that's a gay thing. But Asian man, white woman,
Yeah, yeah. That is a new thing.
new thing, a
That
newer
that
thing.
used to get your TV show canceled
Yeah.
if you showed that.
Now it's a newer thing. Yeah.
Remember Vanishing Son?
I
They did one season and then it got opted for a second season, but in the second season, the two brothers, he's dead already, right? The younger brother's dead, but he comes around as a spirit, and they had a half Anglo, half Chinese, lead
yeah.
actor, right? But
Mhm.
in the second season, he gets to make it with a hot white woman,
Oh yeah.
and
There
I
was
said,
that.
"Well, that's the end of that. That's the end of that show.
Yeah, yeah. How about
That's gonna go." And
there was
it
that
did. They ended it.
last year there was a show Quantum Leap. Remember that?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
And that got canceled. I think it had two
It had
seasons.
2 seasons. Yeah, maybe three.
Yeah, but
I was surprised. I was surprised they got that.
yeah, but
It
I
wasn't. I
watched that.
didn't. I didn't find it very that interesting. Right. I mean,
Yeah, yeah, it was all right. But now, see, now the storylines are now the characters are they're Asian, but they're part Asian. They're like
Well, but that was Vanishing Sun
yeah,
online. What's that?
yeah,
20 years ago?
yeah. Or hey, how about Miss Saigon? The conductor was Eurasian, half white, half
Sure,
Asian.
sure.
But
How about? Yeah, and even the lead role was a mixed race sometimes.
yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
the future maybe the sop to diversity for JD Vance is, hey, I'm the future. I got my Asian white kids. my kids are just like his. They're Asian hillbillies because my wife is from that. Her family's from that same area in Ohio, and so anyway, all right. So all right, we got far flung on from JD Vance.
Well, no, I mean we were stomping all over the place, all around it, but I think we did okay.
No, but tell me,
Some,
we haven't talked about the. And when I talked to you over the weekend, it was like in the throes of the assassination attempt, and I I I was just astonished. Well, there's no other response but to say, we're praying for Donald Trump. I mean, it was like that was the unity that people saw over the weekend. America was united praying for Trump. Even Democrats are praying for Trump. And I guess it's
yeah,
anticipate this week, right? It's going to go away.
yeah. I think I think that's because America wants to see itself in a more humane light.
Yeah.
I think I don't want to say that that's false religiosity, because I think that's real religiosity. Okay, if people do it, however removed we are from formal religious processes, I
Yeah.
think there's still remnants, right, of the humanity of religious values, and that's what we did. Okay, the reality is that um, I think how would it have been if that bullet wasn't an inch off?
Oh yeah. It would have been worse, right? We,
Yes,
we, we might have seen the kind of violence that we're warning ourselves about. And I think
yes.
we're all saying now, hey, violence has no place. And we cross our fingers and we pray there's no one seeking vengeance. But cooler
I
heads prevail
It
now.
would be, I once again I got to hit the BS button on the high. Violence has no place. The adult thing to do would be to say this society has now, okay, become one of the most violent societies without being in civil war, right?
Yeah.
It's become one of the most violent societies in the Western world, right? In the advanced, are we not the most violent society in terms of gun
Well,
deaths
in
and all
terms of
that
guns,
in,
yeah. I
in the
mean,
Western in the developed world? Okay, and
we enable people
and
left and right.
yeah, and our history has been violent. We've got all kinds of assassinations and attempts, right, over the entire existence of this society. Okay, so the more mature thing to say is, at times when we have had political violence, right, the society moved in either of two directions, right? We either came together and tried to resolve the issues that we were at such conflict over, okay, or we spread further apart, okay, and in one instance it led to a thing called the Civil War.
Oh,
Okay,
yeah,
so
yeah.
what a lot of people since then have tried to do was to avoid even referring back to the Civil War because of the circumstances that resulted in, which was hundreds of thousands of people, dying on both sides of the Mason Dixon line, and that generating such wonderful things as the Jim Crow laws, which lasted for what, about 80, 85 years, something like that, all the way
Mhm.
up until Brown versus Board of Education, and
That's true.
actually beyond Brown, because there were 10 years of resistance, right?
Oh yeah, yeah,
From all, not only the southern states, but 10 years of resistance to integration, right? Not just stopping segregation, but the resistance was to integration. It was anti-integration. Okay, and there's a whole slew of federal cases against the states,
yeah.
for not getting rid of segregationist practices. They not just getting rid of laws, but actually getting rid of practices. Okay, Loving versus Virginia, that wasn't decided
Six,
until 1967. You
yeah,
know, and that was the whole period. The Griswold case that finally
yeah,
allowed doctors to be able to advise their clients that they should use contraception. Right, 66. Those
yeah.
so
The
that
six,
Warren Court period was where all these changes that now conservatives want to reverse. That's when they all started really happening. So 54 to 74. That was
yeah,
a 20-year period, right? Where
yeah.
there was significant change in American society, both legislative and judicial. And what
Brown seems like so far away, 1954, but you think about it, and if it's going to be like a 50, 60-year shift, we could be at the beginning end of a real shift that may take a long time before we
Sure,
get to right. We
sure.
right the ship again. And
Well,
I saw, and here's the thing about Biden. I really saw Biden as the guy who righted the ship from, from 2016, right?
uh,
2020. He had to right the ship. That's why it's taken so long, 2020 to 2024. We have a fairly good economy now. We're in
yeah,
much
but
better shape.
but once again, the public doesn't understand that we
Yeah,
have a good economy because all they're worried about is table stakes.
yeah,
They're literally concerned about what it costs them to go to the grocery store.
yeah,
Okay, so even though gas prices are going down, okay, and even I mean petrol, right?
yeah,
Fuel
yeah.
prices are going down. Food prices bump back and forth, and right now, once again, beef prices are really high. I don't know what the hell is
Hey,
dictating that.
people should go vegan. People should go vegan. That would be the best. In fact,
Yeah, yeah.
If Biden said he was going vegan,
Yeah,
that would probably say, "Hey, yeah, I got another 10 years."
okay, but this is the capitalist system. As soon as people figure out that we're going vegan, they'll make it cost more,
Um,
because they'll have to profit. And that's what people don't
beans,
understand. They keep blaming the government, and the reality is those prices ain't set by the government. The government has it's capitalism. You were supposed to be engaging in free enterprise. You remember that? Okay,
supply and
free
demand.
enterprise.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're
Well,
gonna blame somebody, blame the companies that are raising the damn prices. Just stop.
I
Okay, how
just
about this? How about we got to take our economy back from China, okay? And then they blame governments for doing that when it's the corporations that decided they were going to offshore
yeah.
first manufacturing and then jobs.
Well, look, as long as we're talking about China and the economy, to bring it back uh, to Donald Trump and JD Vance. They're pro tariff. They're
Oh
pro
yeah,
tariff, and that's like a 10% tax
yeah, but
on
Joe
everyone.
Biden has let those tariffs ride. A lot of he's let those tariffs ride. Okay.
Well, but Trump and Vance, they're going to make it worse, and it's going to be a real hit to people's pocketbook, much more so than seeing gas
Yeah,
prices
yeah, but they
fluctuate.
didn't understand it when he did it the first time.
Yeah,
You
well,
didn't understand it because the first sets of tariffs came down at the same time that the tax cuts happened, right?
yeah, but
Okay,
I'm just
and it
saying
was
that if
pre-COVID. It was pre-COVID.
right, but tariffs are the mainstay of any kind of Trump economic plan, and that's why Biden keeps mentioning those 16
Yeah,
Nobel
well,
laureates
but they
because
still don't understand it.
well,
The way Trump uses tariffs, he makes it sound as though the people that were putting the companies and the
yeah,
products that were putting the tariffs on end up with money going right into the government's pockets,
yeah,
right? And
yeah,
it's
yeah.
like you
Well,
you know
he makes it sound like it's going to punish China, but it's not going
yeah,
to punish
well,
China.
and enrich us.
Yeah,
Both
but it's
both
not.
ends of that.
Yeah,
And it's like no, you
it's
dummies,
going
but
it's going to
they
hurt
believe that.
us. Yeah,
They believe that,
yeah.
So these people, I don't know. You got a college elite that are supposed to have taken Econ 100 and 101 or something like that, and they make those kinds of decisions. What the hell? You know?
Well, this is what scares me. And now Trump he's going to have a heck of a week at the RNC. It's all this is. I wanted it to be
It's a
more.
coronation. It's a coronation.
Yeah, I wanted it to be more of a as I say in my column. I didn't want the assassination attempt to just benefit one side. Unity benefits all. And there are ways in which you could still have the division that is needed, or the not division, but uh, the integrity of conflict and debate in political
Right, right,
arenas
right.
without going after each other, without using a rhetoric that would cause harm or hurt to one another, violence to one another. There are ways to discuss these things, and I'm
Yeah, but
afraid that
you have to have a psychologically mature
electorate.
population. Yep.
Yeah.
No, not just
Well,
yeah.
we don't have
Whether
that.
or not they're voters doesn't matter to me. I mean, it's
Yeah.
cultural.
Yeah.
Do you have a psychologically, a sociologically mature population? And in
Yeah.
the United States, we do not.
Yeah.
It is really different when we were in Europe,
Yeah.
a few years ago. It's
Yeah.
really different. I mean, people have a much greater sense of maturity around things like sexuality,
Mhm.
and uh, what government means, what government can provide and what it shouldn't provide. They
Yeah.
have a much greater maturity when it comes to understanding labor and the value of labor versus the corporate elite and what kind of money they make. Look at the change in England.
Yeah.
That was pretty good, and the reason it happened was because you had a guy that's really much. He's a centrist. You know,
Starmer.
yeah,
Well, how
Starmer.
about France? France knew what was going on. I mean, early on it looked like maybe they didn't, but in the end,
What they almost would. They almost went with Marie.
yeah. I mean, in the end, they voted correctly. And
Yes,
here in
they did.
America, we are so
Well, and that was a gamble. I mean, that was a hell of a gamble. On Macron's part, that was
yeah
a hell of a gamble. But the guy knew his country.
yeah.
Now he doesn't have the kind of parliamentary uh, weight and influence that he had in the past. But the forced kind of coalition building that he's going to have to go through, I think is a good thing. I mean, I'm a liberal. I'm beyond liberal. I'm even beyond progressive. I'm quite radical in a lot of my political thinking, but I'm also a pragmatist.
Yeah.
I can believe that I think society has to change in a certain direction, and that it has to be structurally much more like what, let's say, a Bernie Sanders would like to see
Yeah.
than is possible. But I'm also a pragmatist. I'm also willing to accept compromises that move in that direction. And
Yeah.
I think it's possible now because the unions are having a resurgence.
You're
And
talking you're talking about France or the United States?
I'm talking about United States.
Well, the unions are having a resurgence, but you see that there was a lot of question about whether or not the UAW was correct in backing Biden. I mean,
Yeah,
at the last minute. So, my question is, all right, let's let this be the last question. What do you think is going to happen to the Biden age issue? Two quick questions. Number one, we know there's going to be no unity except among Republicans at the RNC, right? I mean, the hope for a unity. Look, you said it was naive. I wanted people to come together because we were fearful of violence, but I think we're going to see the same kind of. We might see a slightly toned down rhetoric, but with JD Vance, um, he is Trump's attack dog, and it's going to be as bad, if not worse, with JD Vance. Okay, that's we'll see if Trump gives a unifying speech on Thursday. But now, what about Biden? Do the Democrats give up on the aging thing and say Biden's our guy? Are they confident enough that Biden can win under these circumstances, or does that debate continue?
I think the assassination attempt exacerbates the circumstances,
Makes it,
and
but yet
that
the Democrats aren't doing anything about it. It seems.
I think it makes it worse, and I think it forces the issue even more strongly that Joe's got to get out.
So you're saying they're gonna have to take an action after the.
They're going to have to take an action. He's going to, we'll see what happens, but 2 weeks. I don't think this would be an appropriate time for Joe to bow out. I think I've said that before
Yeah.
On your show, that the best time to do that is after he gets a nomination. But they have to have a plan. They have to put a plan together. All of those people in leadership have to be party to that plan, including Joe's campaign.
Well,
But thus far, I mean, it's the only thing that Joe's campaign did right in the last several weeks was when the assassination attempt happened. They shut down all of the stuff that looks like they're going, strong,
strong attack
against Trump.
Yeah.
So now they've got to develop better language, better rhetoric, but they still have to attack, if not Trump personally, they have to attack policy. Okay.
Right.
And they have to show how, in fact, during the Trump administration, many of the things that are in Project 2025, right, were already underway during the Trump administration. They were already doing that. They have to show. They have to be shown in specific terms how the decision on immunity, right, by Trump versus U.S. Trump versus the United States of America. That's the title of that.
Yeah. Oh,
case.
yeah. Yeah.
Well,
the thing is, I think that Donald Trump is. I see the latest polls. The New York Times new poll today, pretty depressing if you're a Democrat. A little more positive for Kamala Harris, but not by much. Not great for Biden, who's further back than he thought. And I think if he looks at those polls,
it's going to get worse.
Yeah, you just
the Republicans are going to gain all kinds of strength. I get we're out of time, I guess, but let me know afterwards when we're going to talk about 2025.
We're going to talk about Project 2025 next time. So we'll take care of that. All right, Dan, thank you very much. It's kind of it was sort of a sad weekend. Is this a weekend where you remember where you were when Donald Trump got shot at? Is that kind of weekend? Or is it, because if you're a Democrat, you think of this as a milestone day where Donald Trump may have just pretty much guaranteed a victory for November. That's how some Democrats are thinking.
We just got a message. We got a message from a watcher.
Yeah.
Mel, if you're a Camaro, says Project 2025 sucks. But we have to be specific about why it sucks. I really want to get into a conversation about that, because
we'll get into it on Friday. Friday. I mean, this is
all right. So but see, we're going to spend time now on Friday also talking about whatever Trump says on Thursday, right? So
we definitely will talk about Project 2025.
Okay, why don't we open up with it? That way, we'll be sure to.
No, we're going to touch on it. We're going to touch on, because I asked you to say, let's look at it. So let's look at it.
Well, I've been reading. I have it up right now. I've been reading through it. In between looking at other stuff that's going on internationally. But what's been really good is BBC. I've been reading BBC, the way they've been covering stuff, and it's really quite good.
Well, they aren't American.
And right. Yeah, but I don't like American media that much. I mean,
American media, we're in our silos. That's
the problem. I enjoy MSNBC because of the left. Moderate left positions that they take on all of the issues, and they also have better experts. Even when they have a Republican on,
I don't know about that. I think the experts are still better on the networks, like CBS.
CBS is pretty good. I agree with that.
But you can't find CBS as readily on cable. You got to go to the actual network. Station, and they're not always on the news. NBC is good. They have like a 24-hour not just with MSNBC, but with NBC News Now.
Yeah, they
But
got an app. They have an app. They both have apps.
yeah, they all have apps, and so I just think that CNN, they're better, they're good, but I find that
Nah, man, no, I disagree.
they're,
They got
they're not.
they got a lot of lightweights. When the people they call on as experts aren't really that good.
They're well, I would say, you got that's why you got to flip around. You'll see good ones on CNN. You'll see sometimes better ones on the networks because networks have their they have their they've got their audience, and CNN's audience is very small. Anyway, all right. So look, we're going to talk about 2025. I think we got to take it one step at a time. And but I want to get into it. I mean, people need to know about it.
Yeah.
People need to. But I wasn't going to talk about it today, though. I
Okay.
mean, this wasn't. This
You mean
wasn't.
I did that 50 pages of reading, and now I'm all frustrated. So.
No. We can talk. We can talk about it this week. But I wanted to talk about the assassination.
50 out of 922 pages, man.
Well, you don't really. I mean, there's some cribbing you can do, and there's some it's important to read all of it or to expose yourself to all of it, but you get the gist of what this is, and you get the highlights of what it's going to do, and you see the language. I think what people are saying, though, in defense of it, they're saying, oh, look, this kind of stuff happens all the time. Think tanks put out this stuff, and you see it pile up on aides' doors. If you work for a sender, if you work in the media, and no one reads it unless someone adheres to it and say, hey, let's make this into something. And unfortunately for conservatives, that's how legislation.
The bad news is that you're right. Think tanks put stuff out all the time. But when you look at the language used in this production, right, it's extremely propagandistic.
Yeah, well, they're always propagandistic.
No, this is really strong. But what scares me is the way you can break it up into two areas, right? One, premise, and the other
Yeah.
one, resolution. So premise, here's the problem. Then there's a resolution. There's a problem solving suggestion, right? A lot of people are going to buy into the premise, man. When you read the way they put this stuff out there, it describes generally what's really happening. They just describe it in a propagandistic way, but they actually describe what's happening. And so people are going to say, the chances are they're going to say, well, yeah, that's actually what's happening, and they'll accept the propagandistic expression because
Yeah.
they see that underlying that is a reality.
They'll accept it as fact, and then they'll go on and mimic
and accept the resolution, the way that things should be dealt with.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
the
how
danger.
else are we going to deal with it? This is the problem, and then they won't see other alternatives or other sides, or see criticisms of their premise.
We should be asking, people like Mr. Camaro. I'm assuming he's a dude, but we should ask him for his opinion on that, and then let us know. I mean,
Yeah. Well, we'll see. We'll see. All right, Dan.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me on. And
read the next 50.
yeah,
Read the
I was
next
hoping. I was hoping that the former president would say something, live today, but it's all I think on
Thursday.
Truth Social. Yeah, he's truthing it.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you very much. Thanks for having me. It was great. Another conversation.
All right.
And
we'll see. And we're going to get to 2025. I think Project 2025 is one of those things that, it's a little goes a long way. Republicans are disavowing that they've got their own platform. It has nothing to do with 2025, but we know different. We know better. And the platform is going to have no bearing on anything because it doesn't. No one cares about the platform.
The big thing is that Trump's influence is that he wants to take abortion out of the platform. But other than that, it's going to parallel 2025 exactly. We can just
Yeah,
show the parallel.
he wants to take abortion out because he knows that that takes away a winning issue for the Democrats. And he says,
Yeah, but it doesn't really take it away because everybody knows that they actually want to do that.
oh
So
yeah,
you
yeah.
can eliminate it from the platform, but that doesn't mean anything. People still
Well, yeah,
know, what you want to
they're
do.
going to have to deal with it. And even JD Vance has a conflict with that. With Trump, because Trump wants it out and JD Vance wants a national abortion ban, and Trump
With
is
no
less.
exceptions. No, with no exceptions.
Yeah, and Trump is less of a national abortion ban guy. He's more of like, let the states do it. Let the states do it.
Well, that's always been the back off, right? That was
Yeah,
the back off on civil rights.
yeah.
It should be a state. It should be decided on a state by state basis.
Some states can be racist. Some states.
That was what they wanted. So I keep telling people you got to be aware of where you're going. You know, you got to be aware which restaurant are you going to eat in.
Which one will let you in?
Yeah.
That's,
or
unless
we'll let
you're
you leave alive.
unless you're the dishwasher or something.
Yeah.
All right, Dan.
All right,
Dan.
man.
Thank you, man. All right, there he goes. Daniel Phil Gonzalez, my friend of the show. We were talking all weekend about the assassination attempt and how, wow, I couldn't believe that the Democrats are praying for Trump. This is unity. This is unity. And I just wonder how it would last. And you hope that you're going to see some unity at this Republican National Convention. And by unity, I mean not that, we're going to adopt each other's perspectives and points of view, but we would respect, that we would understand, and not feel like the other side is like that we got to come to blows on these things. Here's the thing. I was hoping that at the beginning, but Donald Trump, by selecting JD Vance today as his running mate, is letting me know that he's not letting up on the rhetoric. He's not letting up on the rhetoric. Because who was out there front and center when Donald Trump was shot at? There was JD Vance on X saying, blame Biden, blame the rhetoric. And wouldn't you know, that was like one of the first questions that Lester Holt asked Joe Biden today in that interview. They asked Joe Biden, what about putting a bullet on Trump? Isn't that like vicious rhetoric? No, Joe Biden is incapable of vicious rhetoric. He was using metaphor. Donald Trump is not capable of metaphor. He is only capable of vicious rhetoric. But this is what's going to happen. Joe Biden really can't catch a break. Donald Trump gets all the breaks. All the breaks are going Donald Trump's way. And that is the incredible run of luck of Donald Trump these last 2 weeks, since June 27th. Certainly the last 36, 48 hours. And we'll see what happens on Thursday when he speaks at the Republican National Convention. Oop. My swisher didn't work. Oh, I didn't have my swisher on. No swish. No swish. Let's see, do I have my swisher here? This. Oh, no swisher there either. All right. Well, all right, back again. We'll have Dan back again Friday, and we're going to talk about the end of the convention, and we're going to get into 2025, Project 2025, because it should alarm you. It should alarm you. All right, so we end with a little loving kindness meditation. Do nothing. Actually, I'm convinced. I had to convince myself that if the Democrats should lose, meditation will be the answer. The do nothing idea of letting it go and being okay with everything. Fighting politically, of course, but the way to save your blood pressure and your health, your mental health, is meditation for another 4 years. I'm preparing. People say, oh, move to Canada. No. I'm preparing. Meditation. And so, as I wish for me, I wish for you. May you be safe. May you be happy. May you be healthy. And may you live with ease. Till next time. Emil Guillermo here. Mahal Kita.